What is up, everybody? Matt Modi here to give you some NFL player prop bangers for week 2. We're talking Sunday, week 2, September 15th. I'm going to have 5 NFL player props for you guys to lock in, 4 of which are anytime touchdowns, which we went 4-0 on last week. No big deal. 4 of which are also plus money bangers, which is always a fun thing to bet. Last week was incredible. 4-1 on these player props on Sunday. I cashed my Monday player prop. Overall, player props were up over 5 units last week. We're also able to be profitable in our non-player prop markets as well. And I'm just going to recap week over week. So if you're waiting for Thursday Night Football, I'm just going to recap week over week because it gets kind of confusing with the day. So last week was amazing. Let's hope we can continue things to continue to be amazing into week 2. Before we get started, I would appreciate if everybody could subscribe to my YouTube channel if you are not already for this specific video. If you could like, if you could comment, I would appreciate that as well. And then the last thing that I will mention before I get into the bangers is that I do have a Dub Club where I send all my plays out. $5 a month gets everything that I'm playing sent directly to your phone via text, email, or Telegram. So if you're interested in getting plays sent to you early before I post them on YouTube, or you're just not always able to watch the YouTube videos, that's what the Dub Club is for. Link to that is everywhere in the video if you're interested. If not, no problem. You can still get everything for free on YouTube and on Twitter. Follow me there at Jedi Modi. And let's start talking bangers. So play number 1. I'm going to go ahead and take Isaiah Pacheco, anytime touchdown. I was able to get this at minus 105 odds at bet 365. So one thing that I'm going to start doing moving forward is I'm going to tell you a bet 2 number because I record these videos and I post them. But I post them early. Like this video is being posted on Friday afternoon, Friday evening, whenever I can get it edited and get it up. The odds might change by the time you watch this video. So I'm going to tell you what I would bet this number 2. So I was able to lock it in at minus 105. I sent it out to my Dub Club members at minus 105. That's the best offered price at the time of the recording. But it might change. So for this one, I would bet it to minus 115. If you can get it at minus 115, that's where I would take it. Now, Pacheco, he was one of my favorite bets to score in week 1. He did. That was awesome. I love for him to score once again against the Bengals. I'm going to go ahead and run this bad boy right back. Now, the Chiefs, we didn't see them run a ton of plays in the red zone last week, right? 2 of the touchdowns that the Chiefs had was outside the red zone. They were longer touchdowns. They only ran 6 plays total. Of the plays that they ran, the good news is Pacheco got 100% of the red zone work for the Chiefs. Not a single player or I should say not a single running back other than Isaiah Pacheco logged a statistic in the red zone. The Chiefs had 2 carries inside the 20. Both of those carries went to Isaiah Pacheco, one of which was the touchdown that he came through for us. Now, looking into this matchup, the Chiefs have a much easier matchup going up against a bad Bengals defense than they did last week going up against a good Ravens defense. The Bengals defense really struggled in week 1. They allowed 120 rushing yards to Ramondre Stevenson. He scored a touchdown against them as well. And that Patriots offensive line is terrible. Not even remotely close as good as this Chiefs offensive line. Now, I get it that the Chiefs are a more pass-heavy team with Andy Reid. Let's not forget that Andy Reid has shown the willingness to pound that rock on the ground if he has an advantage, if he feels he has an advantage on the ground. A good example of that would be this exact matchup last year. Pacheco rushed for 130 yards and scored a touchdown. So the guess here is that the Chiefs are going to have an advantage running the ball. And I think that when they get into the red zone, they're going to run the ball, especially if they have a play where they get tackled, inside the 5. That ball is going to Pacheco. And as I mentioned, in week 1, he got all the red zone work. Last year, he got all the red zone work of 52 total carries for Chiefs running backs in the red zone. He got 42 of them. He scored a touchdown last week. He's now scored a touchdown in 8 of the last 9 games for the Chiefs. I love for him to get into the end zone once again. Absolutely love this play. Play number 1, Isaiah Pacheco. Play number 2, another running back, anytime touchdown. This time we are taking Jonathan Taylor to score a touchdown, plus 110 odds at DraftKings. So this play, the line movement has been interesting. I actually bet it at plus 105. But when I last checked the odds, you could get a better price at plus 110. So that's what I'm giving out. Either way, as long as you can get plus money on this bad boy, on this play, then I would take it at anything plus 100 or higher. Honestly, I think that getting Jonathan Taylor to record a touchdown is at a plus money price is an absolute gift. I think this one is a smash play. Let's start with the matchup. We all saw what Saquon Barkley did to the Packers in week 1. Brazil, Friday night, you guys were watching it. If you forgot what happened, Saquon Barkley had 24 carries for 109 yards. He scored 2 touchdowns on the ground and a receiving touchdown. Now, we're not going to talk about the receiving touchdown because the ground game is the most important thing here. They got shredded by Saquon Barkley. 4.5 yards per carry for Saquon on that horrible field, too, where he was slipping and sliding all around. Not only did the Packers get shredded by Saquon Barkley, as I just detailed, but they also did a really good job bottling up the QB running game for the Eagles and for Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts went 13 of 33 on the ground. You take out 2 pushes, 11 for 31 on the ground. Pretty brutal. Now, part of that, if you want to make the argument that the Eagles' run-pass option game looked a little bit clunky, that's fine. Either way, the Packers did a pretty good job shutting down the QB run game, and they have the athletic linebackers to do so. So if they want to take out the legs for Anthony Richardson, I think they're going to be capable of doing that. I don't think that they're going to be able to stop the run. So I think that the Colts are going to lean heavily on the running game with Jonathan Taylor. Also, I mean, if Jordan Love plays, that would be shocking. I don't think he's going to play. If he does, he's probably going to be limited. But I'm going into this game thinking that it's going to be Malik Willis. I don't think that the Packers are going to be able to do much with Malik Willis on offense. So I think that the Colts, they're not playing the Texans like they played last week. I think they're going to be able to take it a little bit easy with Anthony Richardson. I don't think they'll need to run him that much. I don't think we'll see a scenario where Richardson plows through 3 defenders with his shoulder at the goal line trying to score like we saw in week 1. I was on Richardson anytime touchdown last week. I'm not on it this week because I don't think he's going to need to run. And Jonathan Taylor had 4 red zone carries in week 1. He basically took all the running back red zone carries. He was able to convert one into a touchdown. I think he should get plenty of work. I think he should be able to score as well. That's play number 2. Next up, Mike Evans, anytime touchdown, plus 125 odds at DraftKings. This is another play that you're actually able to get better odds than what I got when I gave it out. I gave it out at plus 120. It's best offered at plus 125 as of right now. I would only bet this to plus 120 as well. That's kind of where I would keep this at. But Evans, I know this is not necessarily a thing with the NFL, but Evans scored 2 touchdowns last week. That might scare some people off. Doesn't really bother me. I look into the matchups. I look into everything outside of did they score, yes or no. And a lot of stuff lines up well for Mike Evans. He's developed a really nice chemistry with Baker Mayfield. They're good in the deep ball. Baker goes to him in the red zone. These two have played 20 games together. Mike Evans has scored a touchdown in 13 of those 20 games. He also has 3 separate games in which he has 2 touchdowns. And in that 13 games in which he scored was a game in which these 2 teams played last year, where not only did Mike Evans score a touchdown, he lit the Lions up. 147 receiving yards on 8 receptions and a touchdown. Just lit them up. And what I like about backing Evans is he's a type of receiver that can score on a deep route, because Baker Mayfield does throw a pretty good deep ball, but he also gets heavily targeted in the red zone. In the Bucs' week 1 victory over the Commanders, Baker Mayfield threw 5 passes in the red zone. 3 of those 5 passes went to Mike Evans. 2 of them were touchdowns. He was quoted saying, if Mike is single covered, I'm going to throw him the ball. I don't know if the Lions are going to consistently leave him single covered. I do know that they have a rookie cornerback that the Bucs are going to want to test. If you want to go back to last year, Mike Evans led the Bucs with 17 red zone targets, turned those into 7 red zone touchdowns, which also led the Bucs. And this is a great matchup against the Lions. The Lions have an excellent run defense and have really bad passing defense. That's the perfect combination for these passing props. I'm taking it as a touchdown. If you want to take his receptions, yards, whatever, I think they're all solid. We were on Cooper Kupp anytime touchdown last week. He scored a touchdown. Granted, at the very end of the game, still counts all the same. Cooper Kupp also had 110 receiving yards on 14 receptions. Looking at last season, the Lions allowed the fewest rushing yards per game, but the 4th most passing yards. And their passing defense just got worse as the season went on. They have a totally new secondary, same coaching staff. And looking at this year, again, that's something that seemed to have continued. Cooper Kupp had an awesome game. He scored. Matthew Stafford threw for over 300 yards, granted on a ton of attempts, but still threw for over 300, one of only 2 quarterbacks that did so. So I think that Baker should have success in the air. I think that he'll have success throwing to Mike Evans. Hopefully it means touchdown. That's play number 3. 4th and second to last play of the slate, Brian Thomas Jr., 4+ receptions, plus 130 odds at bet 365. I would take this as long as you can get it plus 120 and above. So this is our only non-anytime touchdown play of the day. Now, last week, our non-anytime touchdown play didn't hit, but I liked the one last week. I really like the one this week. Thomas did hit this over last week, but he hit it on 4 receptions against the Dolphins. And even though he's got a tough matchup against the Browns, I think he's going to be able to go over once again. So I mentioned he had 4 receptions on 4 targets, but this is more of like a ball knower type of thing, which is not me saying I know ball. It's me saying I read people that I respect who know ball. The route running of Brian Thomas Jr. was phenomenal. He was routinely able to get open, and he was going up. Keep in mind, Jalen Ramsey of the Dolphins is who he was going up against, and he was consistently able to get open against him. He did score a touchdown. He looked phenomenal. Even in a game in which the Jags offense in general, their passing offense looked awkward, out of sync. Trevor Lawrence only completed 12 passes of his 21, so he only threw 21. That's just all bad for 162 yards, and nobody on the Jags had more than 4 targets. Luckily, Brian Thomas Jr. was one of those receivers that had 4 targets, tied with 2 other players. He was also on the field 77% of the time. Rookie wide receiver in his first NFL action, getting 4 targets, playing 77% of the snaps, and looking awesome. 2 thumbs up. Great sign for us. I'm also not really sure that this is going to be a tough matchup. I'm kind of down on the Browns. I faded them last week. That came through very easily. I'm not necessarily saying I think they're going to lose this week, but I do think that their defense is not going to be as good as it was last year. I mean, if you want to look at last week, I get that the Browns offense put their own defense in a lot of bad positions. That kind of happened later in the game. If you want to look at when the game was still close, the Cowboys are able to move the ball with relative ease. Like the Cowboys' second drive of the game, 6 plays, 7 yards, touchdown. They were down 3-0, up 7-3 after that. Later in the first half, they got the ball back with like 11 minutes left in the second quarter. Again, 7-3 game, a 1-score game. The Cowboys drove 78 yards on 11 plays, scored a touchdown, took almost 6 minutes off the clock. So even if you're going to tell me the Browns defense is exactly as good as they were last year, I still think 4 receptions is pretty reasonable for Brian Thomas Jr., who I think is going to be the number 1 target for this offense. And if they're not a good defense, that just gives even more opportunity for us. So 4 receptions is not crazy. Plus 130 odds is pretty solid. That's play number 4. 5th and final pick of the video. As always, we save our juiciest play for last. Sam Laporta, that's not how you actually pronounce it. Sam Laporta, anytime touchdown, plus 150 odds at Caesars. I would play this all. I got plus 150. I'd play that all the way down to plus 130. Now, this is a matchup play against, I mean, we're targeting the same Bucs-Lions game, right? It's kind of funny. Both these teams, both the Bucs defense and the Lions defense, they both have really good running defenses and really bad passing defenses. So they're very similar in both of those metrics. So this is a play because Laporta has a great matchup against the Bucs. And I love Laporta's role as a red zone target for the Lions. In the matchup against the Bucs, they struggle in the pass in general. They also really struggle to guard tight ends specifically. And they, that was the case all year. And I get that they had Devin White, who they benched. They were still bad at guarding tight ends even after they benched Devin White. So I don't think that's like the magic solve or anything like that. But let's look at Sam Laporta as a rookie. Remember, rookie tight ends are not supposed to be good. He was awesome. He had 22 total red zone targets. That was the 3rd most of all tight ends in the NFL. Only Travis Kelce and Jake Ferguson had more red zone targets than Sam Laporta. As we get closer to the end zone, things still look good. He tied Jason Kelce with the most targets inside the 10-yard line. They each had 13. So from 22 in the red zone to 13 inside the 10. And he also tied Njoku with the 2nd most tight end targets, specifically inside the 5 with 7. All good numbers. You compare those tight end numbers to wide receiver numbers, and that's still pretty good. Like his red zone targets of 22, that would have been the 7th most among wide receivers. 13 targets inside the 10 would have been the 5th most, and 7 targets inside the 5 would have tied him with Devontae Adams for the 3rd most. And if you're looking for his role specifically on the Lions, last year Amon-Ra St. Brown did have more red zone targets than Sam Laporta, but the real money downs inside the 5, Laporta out-targeted Amon-Ra 7-3. So, last week was a weird game for both Laporta and Amon-Ra. I don't necessarily think that's going to continue this week. That's not going to be a barometer for how the season's going to go. I think both of them are still going to be awesome. I'm on Laporta in this one. I liked Amon-Ra receptions and yards, just like the Laporta touchdown angle a little bit more. And then as for the matchup, I mentioned, Bucs had one of the best run defenses last year. They really struggled through the air and specifically struggled guarding tight ends. The Bucs tied the Ravens and the Falcons. The Falcons is a surprising one in there, but those teams allowed the fewest rushing touchdowns on the year. The Bucs, Ravens, and Falcons. The Bucs allowed the most targets to tight ends, third most receptions, third most yards, tied for allowing the third most touchdowns. Pretty bad. So Laporta's role in the red zone, which I'm going back to last year, which I think is pretty, I think we can count on that again this year, even after a weird week one. You combine that with the Bucs struggling to guard tight ends. I think Laporta is a great bet to score in week 2 as our 5th and final pick of the video. And that's all we got. I appreciate everybody for watching. Make sure to like the video, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff.